Floating in a sea of misinformation, outright lies, blatant propaganda, and institutionalized indoctrination, we aim to see the world as it really is, not as we're told it is by our politicians, the corporate-controlled media, the agendized academia, or the failed dogma of religious prejudice. Together, we are flipping the pyramid. www.flippingthepyramid.co.uk.
I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hey everybody and welcome. We are doing a show. That's right, Cookie and I do a show here on, what are we on? We're on both Fin Radio and
FTP.
Flipping the Pyramid, FTP. I always feel like I want to take some FTP. I'm going to take some FTP, man. Anyway, I'm Adonis King, and this is I call him my Yoda. He is the HairyCookieMunster. He is the bluest, furriest Yoda you'll ever meet. But,
Harry.
Harry. I always see you as blue in my mind for some reason. Not blue like sad, blue like cool, you know. Like maybe you're an avatar. That's what it is.
Cool things down.
You're an avatar, aren't you?
Possibly.
Possibly. We all could be.
Debatably, yeah.
Well, it's the idea that the imagination can be real.
Well, it's also that question as well as where exactly does consciousness reside? Because if it doesn't exist purely because of the brain biology, then your body is an avatar.
I tried to Google map my brain biology, but I couldn't figure out what its address was. I was trying to figure out where it was, you know. Everybody's trying to find themselves. That's the world we find ourselves in, and that's part of what I think Ecstatic Zen is about, is the idea of finding yourself and realizing who you are and what things are, what is. I mean, Zen is the idea that there is a pattern to all things, in a sense. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can see it, I guess, but it's this moment of consciousness of where you feel both connected and yet... I mean, well, you're the Zen guy. You explain it, Cookie. What? You tell. I'm more the ecstatic dude. I can say it brings you joy and peace and love, and you just want to jump up and down and be all thrilled with life, and you get all colorful, and you talk a lot like I do. But
coincidentally enough, as I was doing my usual sort of surfing across news sites and whatever today, I saw a good quote from the Buddha. It was one of the classic quotes, I think. It's slightly paraphrasing, I can't remember it word for word, was basically, when you finally open your eyes to realise just how perfect everything is, you'll throw your head back and laugh at the sky. It's that moment of focused reality when, yes, you feel like you're part and parcel of everything else, but you're also uniquely aware of your individualness within that everything else. That to me is the Zen, combining the ultimate singularity focus point with the never-ending horizon, that Mobius loop horizon.
The meeting of the all with the nothing.
Yes.
That silent moment.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like an epiphany at the same time, so it's almost, I mean, I guess in human terms it would be sort of like the spiritual orgasm moment.
Silent cacophony.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. I mean, if anybody's ever gone into that moment, because I think I've experienced a moment, well, not that moment, but like that moment. I think the perfect Zen moment is, I don't think humanity has, very few, if any, have reached that.
Mm. Yes,
the true Zen moment, the totality of realization.
Mm-hmm. Well, arguably, we could talk about different figures. Like I used the quote from the Buddha, said this, where at that point do people who have reached that kind of stage, what occurs then? Unfortunately, I've only got sort of historical accounts to look at to reference these people. I wasn't actually standing next to them when they suddenly achieved enlightenment. You know, do they actually vanish?
Now, I heard you were standing right next to Moses. I heard that. You were the guy who...
Beard.
You shouldn't have tripped him while he was holding those rocks.
I know. I couldn't help myself.
Well, you had to... And God got all pissed about that. We were up talking about that just the other day.
Well, you know, he was always procrastinating. His beard was just not as fuzzy as mine, so it just, you know.
I understand that. He sometimes sits under the shade of your beard. That's how he found gravity. He said, wow, some of that hair fell off. What is that?
Some of the crumbs. Yeah.
It's some crumbs from a bit of bread. We gotta, humor is so important too in today's world as we deal with this cacophony of pandemonium that we're in. And what do you find in life for you, Cookie, makes you feel the happiest right now? What is it that brings you the most joy?
Well, it's an awkward question because for me I could split it into two sort of, the way you described it, I could split it into two separate things. What is it that gives me that kind of humorous relief, that sense where you get like laughter therapy?
So you're dividing the laughter from the other. Yeah. Okay, I see where you're going. Okay.
I'm trying to divide the sort of general laughter that just, is fun,
nervous,
makes you feel a bit better, etc., to what you use the word joy, that kind of truly uplifting joy sensation, which to me is a bit separate to laughter per se.
Isn't it wonderful when they come together?
Yes, yeah, of course.
When you get them together, that's like awesome. That's like in a comedy club. I've had that experience where you're in such just utter. I mean, the guy gets you laughing so hard that you literally you're just, and you go into a moment that's. I guess it's part of it is the breathing, isn't it? Like how we breathe. Yeah, I mean, as we laugh, we breathe a certain way, and that creates like a stimulation of certain.
Yeah, I think it's the equivalent of oxygen starvation. I think, if I'm.
I think there's some serotonin or melatonin or one of those tonin things in the brain are doing.
Yeah, definitely. But in terms of like when you get stuck in that belly laughter, guffawing, where you almost can't breathe because you're laughing so hard, there is a little bit in there. You get an almost rush effect because you are oxygen starving or reducing the amount of oxygen going to your brain. Combine that with, as you say, release of serotonins and endorphins and stuff like that.
Did you ever see Did you ever see the thing called Laughology?
Mm-hmm.
That, I think, right there was a brilliantly done. The guy still has a group. I wanted to take the class. They actually offer you can get a Laughology degree, and then you can teach it, which would be nice. I need a way to make money. I would love to teach people how to laugh. I think that would be a great thing to do.
I think they should give out some honorary degrees then.
Just anybody who can make you laugh, if they can do that, then they should get something. Because in a world like today, if you can't get some kind of laughter out of it, I mean, wow, we're going to be really.
Was why, I started trying to differentiate between the two, because I was going to say, we all need a bit of relief in that sense of there's nothing wrong with having a bit of a laugh now and then. Because yes, there's a lot of trouble going on in the world. There's a lot of things you should be concerned about and want to speak out about and, maybe get active and protest against or do some other form of activity. Yes, great. That is very true. But every single one of us needs a bit of break and a relief now and then. So there's nothing wrong with having a bit of a laugh. Everything doesn't have to be deadly serious all the time. If you live that way, to me, you are in effect falling into part of the trap. It leads you into all that fear stuff, fear paranoia of, oh, it's all so terrible, I can't do anything. Oh, I'll just sit here and go, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Well, I mean, if you're living in a state of fear all the time and paranoia, then you're going to have this attitude, oh my God, they're coming to take me away. Mm-hmm. But if you live in a state of everlasting happiness and joy, then the only thing you got to worry about is they're coming to take me away, ha ha. They're coming to take me away, ha ha. Hee hee ha to the funny farm. My life is wonderful all the time, and people are. Oh, I'm sorry, but anyway, too much joy can be a problem too. You do have to balance it out with a little bit of the pathos, if you will, or the contemplation over what is on the other side of things, so that you can plan ahead and work through issues. I mean, some people are avoidant. We live in a very avoidant. People are afraid to confront their own dragons.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. I think it's in that kind of sense of the humour aspect. I'm not sure if it's something that I've picked up sort of culturally, cultural indoctrination, because I live in the UK. Over the years, I've sort of come to conclude that what's known as the typically British sense of humour, apart from its sort of toilet humour, fanar type innuendo type humour. Yes,
nudge, wink, wink, say no more.
Yeah, there's definitely, that's like the underbelly of the humour, the British humour. But the majority of it, and certainly to me, there seems to be the predominant thread of it, is that sort of cynical, self-deprecating, sort of like, oh, it's raining again. Oh, that's typical, that is. That's just British weather. Get on with it. And you get on with your daily life. And that for me, just it really does sort of bubble up into that. It's one of those hopeful things. And that to me is like, yes, I might often use cynical, sarcastic humour, gallows humour, that kind of stuff. But to me, that's part and parcel of how do you deal with this kind of stuff.
Well, most humour is based upon some form of attack or violence. We say, even in that movie Punchline, there was a talk of the fact that they said most humour is violent, because you knock them dead, you leave them, leave them. What is it? It is Punchline. I mean, think about it. It's a violent act in and itself. I can't remember the whole thing. There's a whole thing in there with Tom Cruise giving this whole rundown of all of the ways in which humor is a violent thing in a sense.
Yeah,
it is. It does attack the senses.
Psychologically as well, the majority of humor, if not arguably all of it, stems from fear responses. And
shock. It's shock.
Yeah.
You're shocked for a moment.
It's why we bare our teeth and make typically some kind of grunting noise. This is going into anthropological.
I don't do that. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. In fact, it's an inbuilt, what would have been a fear response. And when you actually look at comedy and what makes people laugh, well, the kind of things that the comedian says that creates the joke, etc. I mean, you've got lots of different types, styles of the way comedy is done. But a vast part of it, the audience reacts out of some kind of fear. Either they're laughing because if they were the person in the joke, they would be embarrassed, or they'd be shown to be stupid, or
the show.
Yeah, it all, I shouldn't say all, largely stems from that kind of, we react in laughter because actually we don't want to be the people they're talking about. So we are afraid of being in the position that this person is ridiculing. That's why it's ridicule.
Well, I think this is interesting because what came to mind is how, in our culture, we are told to hold back emotions except for in certain situations. Like, for instance, if you go to a comedy show, you're allowed to laugh publicly. If you go to a sports arena, the things they allow you to do, that people have taken off their clothes and painted themselves the color of the team. People will jump up and down like idiots. They all do that, and everybody gets together and has that group moment doing the wave. Yeah, and everybody, yeah, you scream. Concerts, rock concerts, same thing. People will, look at my kids, and girls will do things they'd never do in public anywhere else at a rock concert, and. It just is amazing how people can change and become. Where was I going with that now? See, I need another hit. Hold
on. Maybe you were going towards the way people can allow their emotions to come out in that kind of group environment.
Yes, that's it. That's where I was going. Thank you. That's why I need you, Cookie. Anyway, people in today's world are so repressed that they look for things that they can bring their emotions out in. You know, and
I would also personally like to add to that, in my cynical observatory kind of fashion, the machine plays on that a lot and uses it to steer people into sanctioned activities. In a really debased example, you know, a free speech zone, it's okay to be that way when, as you're saying about, you know, your football team, your sports team, it's okay to let those emotions out when you're there, but as soon as you walk out the stadium, it's not allowed now. The machine utilises that to channel people into, you know, what I would call sanctified or sanctioned areas where they're allowed to express that stuff.
Yeah, and bars are another place where people, of course, then there they get, you know, they get all the comfort of, I can do anything now. I'm going to go sing this karaoke tune. Put on the Elvis song. I'm going to do Elvis. Oh, down in the bed with Fred and the Damford, back in the flip and the flam, and Elvis. Okay, anyway.
And you will be convinced that you're the bestest.
You will have gone away thinking you did, man, next day you think, I was a star, man. Yeah. Man, I did Elvis so good. They loved me. They even mobbed me. Now, why I ended up outside, I don't know. There was some period there in the middle of all that. I just ended up outside. I remember security, something about that. But Elvis needed security, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I use that, like I said, a very debased sort of example, but the free speech zone thing.
Yep.
Just because, you know, it does seem very much, and certainly again, you know, that being in the UK, that again is something that's stereotypically, culturally British, you know, the stiff upper lip and the polite society type thing, you know. It's okay to jump up and down and paint yourself the colours of your team while you're in the stadium, but then you have to
put your shirt on once you get outside.
Yeah, you have to go back to being a normal, good, quiet citizen. Shut up now, you know, put your shirt back on.
We let you lose your mind, now go home. Go home and be sane now.
Yeah, I'm not, you know, I'm sure people are aware enough to know that I'm not condoning some of the ridiculous stuff that goes on around sports events, but in reference to what you were talking about, you know, people feeling like they can have those kind of emotions. It is allowed to have those kind of emotions. I look at this, to me, this is like, well, hang on a minute, why are you letting them tell you, not only tell you, but confine you to only knowing what these emotions are in relation to their stipulations? You know, you're only allowed to do it in this kind of situation, only on this site, when you're with these people at these times, blah, blah, blah.
I'm sorry, I have to check into my, I have to sign the paper before I can answer that question. Hold on, let me, gotta get permission to talk to you here, hold on.
Static for 15 minutes. Oh, you've gone 5 minutes over your quota.
We have an ecstatic, how come I can't talk today? It's a full moon, dude, that's why. You know that? It's a full moon day. I'm turning into something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Oh, that's a divergent topic we could go into there, because I thought it was interesting, some of the recent like solar activities picking up again, spiking again, stuff like that. And it just happens to be a new moon. Here in the UK we've had days of heavy weather, and I know in the USA you've had a lot of severe weather, you know. It's
just God trying to build a cook stove. He'll be done with his eggs shortly.
You can't bake some cookies without breaking some eggs, can you? Do you need eggs to bake cookies? I don't know.
Well, it depends on what kind of cookies you're making. There are some cookies with eggs and some without.
Oh, right, that's okay.
We'd have to ask Nick, though. Nick's the cook.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll probably listen to this sooner or later and go, why did you mention me? You mentioned cooking.
Where were we going with this? Were we going into it and talking about life?
Do we go anywhere here? Do we just go, man? We go with the flow. Remember last week, flow?
Yeah. Talking about the comedy side, it's why recently, the last show I did, because I've been meaning to do this for ages anyway. I've sort of picked out some classic Bill Hicks quotes.
I like Bill.
You know, just to play for people. You know, I'm sure the majority of people who are probably listening to this, if not everyone, would have heard these things before. You know, they have, to a certain degree, become a bit cliche because you see them so often quoted and used on the internet and stuff like that. But like I said before about things like that, it's only a cliche because it rings true for you. You know, and it's that.
It's a meme.
Yeah, it doesn't remove the truth in what's being said just because it's been said a lot already.
Well, the reason, yeah, exactly, and it's good to remind ourselves. It's kind of like that thing with Charlie Chaplin from The Dictator. I hear that a lot. I play that a lot because it reminds me what it is that we're doing. Mm. It's still good words.
I would also highly recommend people watch the entire film. The Great Dictator, isn't it? I think it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You know, please. You know, there's something else I've noticed as well. Sometimes you get on the, you know what the internet is like, anyway. You know.
Really, what is it like?
It's sort of wobbly.
But somebody told me the aliens are coming next week to a church in Denver where some people is waiting, holding on to crosses, because what's going to happen is the alien ships are going to come down and attach to the crosses that they're holding on to and just pull them up into space where they're going to fly around like little angels.
Don't forget some freshly baked apple pie.
I got to save them. I got to send them some money, too. They wanted some money. I don't know why they need them. I guess to build the crosses to hang off the bottom of the UFOs with.
But I was just going to say, like, with that speech, it is like you will often encounter on the internet, as the internet is prone to do, you know, propaganda works both ways. People will use things out of context. They'll take snippets out of speeches or dialogue or whatever and use them out of context to purvey what they want them to mean, rather than what the original message.
It's so much more fun than using what they actually did. Come on.
Well,
I mean, if we can just...
This is why I agree that there is what you could call positive propaganda as well as negative propaganda. That's what I mean. It goes both ways. We're doing propaganda now. You know?
We are? This is propaganda?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Am I supposed to hate myself now?
No.
I hate me for doing propaganda. God damn it. I hate it. Stop it. I'm beating myself up now. Here we go.
It's just
you hear that?
It's just another tool, isn't it?
It's just learning, whatever. You know, propaganda is only what the other side calls the information.
Yes. Yeah, could argue that, yeah.
I mean, everybody's got an idea or a belief, man. I mean, you know, anything that comes out against your idea or belief that you hold dear, often you term propaganda just because it's a convenient term. I disagree with that. It's propaganda. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm. All I was going to say originally was, you know, if you're interested in what is being said in whatever clip it is you hear, see, read, then check into it further. Watch the whole version of the speech. Watch the original film. Read the original book. You know, whatever. But don't always.
People read?
Well, you never.
I thought they just watched YouTube now. I thought that was how people learned.
Yeah, it seems to be most of the time. Yeah.
I've seen that there's a 40-foot lizard living right off the coast of Florida, and he's going to come up one day and own the world.
It must be true. It says so on the internet.
Some guy from Dutch Sense Nest said it. I heard it on some Alex June bug or something on some prison wars thing. I heard him say that there is beamer camps all over the place. We're going to beamer us up. We're going to go right up, and there's something called the Aluma light bulbs or something up there. And they got an eye on a pyramid, and somehow they're going to stuck us into it. And
yeah, you want to be careful, you know. You could start a whole new, conspiracy meme with that.
I could, yes. Let's do one now, shall we? And then...
One I thought up recently, well, I say recently, it was last year, was the Godzilla meme. just simply because of, talk about nuclear weapons being used in the earthquake in Japan. One of the possibilities that what they're actually trying to do is wake up Godzilla. So that'll be the apocalypse, will be the return of
could be. You never know, man. Things can happen. Weirder things have happened. It could be maybe they hatch a dinosaur egg and they start multiplying rapidly, or bacteria grows suddenly out of something. It turns into a virus and flies around because they're really big, and they start like attaching themselves to our backs. And oh wait, no, that was a Star Trek episode.
Genetic mosquitoes released it recently. So many stories recently about.
Hey, they found the God particle too. Or rather, they didn't find the God particle. I don't know. What they found was nothing.
There you go. There's another example of propaganda. I think actually that news was a bit more sort of like, we are nearly there, folks. Please don't give up on us. Please keep giving us funding. We're doing it. We're nearly there. We're nearly there. That's
because they spent like what on that big thing, that collider? What did they spend on that?
I don't know, however many billions.
They got to say something. Yeah, we're almost there. Yeah. I say we just name God. What is it, Bose Hoseman or whatever it is?
I think they'll end up suffering from what usually happens with these kind of empirical science investigations. They'll eventually find what they're looking for, but they'll then realise that what they were looking for was not actually the end of what they're looking for. That there'll be other sub-particles or something else. The infinity goes in both directions.
You know what I have to laugh at, though, is people pick it apart and look at it and examine it and all, go out looking into space and looking at it, and I just have to go, it's all one! And they just sit there and they're all picking it apart. Oh, science. And I have nothing against science. It's just, all you're doing is examining what I would call God, That's just me. It's the one thing, Why do you have to pick it all apart and understand every little detail? It's interesting, yeah, I understand. But it becomes this big debate thing and divides people. Like,
isn't it part, again though, I often talk about what it is to be human, what is human, but it's certainly one of the things that we do, isn't it? We ask why. We ourselves ask why in terms of why do we exist? Why
I wonder why we do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder why I just asked that question as to why we do that. Wait a minute, why did I ask that again? And why did I ask that again? I'm stuck in a loop.
Yeah.
We all are, aren't we, in a way? I mean, that's kind of our life, is stuck in a loop. I hope it's a funny loop, because we were talking about humor earlier. I don't want to completely leave the subject of that, because there's a lot that can be said. Humor, to me, is something that I found is such a beneficial thing in our lives. Mm-hmm. And to me, I couldn't cope often with my situation if I didn't laugh at it. And I find myself laughing often at the things sometimes that maybe when they were happening were terrifying or tragic, and I find humor in them. And that's what gets me through those tragic or terrible times, is that there's some sense of irony that I see in it, and I give myself permission to laugh at that irony. And it heals the rest of it. It encompasses the whole event and eventually wipes clean all the negative elements of that event. So humor with love attached, of course, which is compassion, joy. I mean, love's a big subject, I guess. But humor, having that humor and that element of humor really, it's sort of like a cleansing agent. Like love's a cleansing agent and then humor follows behind it and picks up the rest. Sometimes it can be, I don't know, maybe sometimes the humor is the first line of defense. But when I was a kid, for instance, I never had to get into fights because if I could make the other kid laugh, they wouldn't fight. Mm-hmm. So I would find some way, this is, why I guess I learned to talk because I didn't like fighting. So, I learned to verbally fight. I guess I won every verbal argument because I never got into a fight. I mean, I had kids, I'm going to kick your ass, Really? You mean this one back here? And they just
Well, I'll ask you a question then, so following along from that, just like out of interest, because I'm just thinking about it myself.
Okay, go ahead.
Is there a line you would draw on what you would consider to be humour? In other words, is there something that you think is going too far? is unpleasant, is not actually humorous, it's just abusive.
Okay, this is my own personal taste in humor now, because, see, I understand people who have this, but I watch, a lot of videos like on YouTube that are supposedly humorous, or people, pushing people off things, or getting hit with bats in the groin, or having their arm sawed off by a chainsaw accidentally, or, something, people market these things as funny. And we're really shocked. I mean, because humor is shocking, and the shock has to do, sometimes we laugh at things that are shocking, and we're trying to, I mean, Faces of Death could be funny to the, Charles Manson, I guess. But,
or to someone who reacts with laughter at something that they find shocking or frightening.
In order to cope with it. In order to cope sometimes.
Some people go into hysterics of laughter and, don't actually deal with, they go into sort of like a panic mode, where rather than crying or screaming, they're just laughing.
With humor, though, the thing is this. I find that kind of humor, kind of repulsive. But at the same time, I don't think that we should be censoring what is humorous. Because humor is the one area where you kind of have to lay off the traditional PC. Notice in our culture, we even still, like when Dave Chappelle was on the Comedy Channel, a lot of his humor was geared towards race, towards, the fact that he was black. I mean, he pointed out in his humor, it was and to me, one could take that as racist, but he used to make some really good points about racism, like his blind, the black racist who was blind and didn't know he was, I don't know if you've seen Dave Chappelle's show. Are you familiar with that at all? Okay. But you remember the blind racist dude?
Didn't know he was black.
Yeah, he was black, but he was talking about, and he was using the N-word gratuitously a lot. And, but comedians need to be able to point some of these things out, because comedy is dealing through some of these issues. You go to a comedy club, you're going to hear about life experiences. You're going to hear about honest portrayals of things like sex and traveling on airplanes and, things that irritate. And sometimes we have comedy that's like, I think of Lewis Black, who is, complains and gripes, about stuff. And we have political satirists like, who would be a good political satirist? Like we were talking about earlier.
Doug Soap. We couldn't exactly call him political satirist, so he's more just a satirist of everything.
Well, but that's a good thing. That's because everything is worth satire.
I was also going to add that, isn't it a bit of a modern trend, that style of comedy? You go back 40, 50 years, the comedy was much more formulaic. It was a set-up observational joke. It wasn't necessarily the comedian relaying his own experiences. And I know in the modern style, sometimes they will make it up. They don't necessarily, they themselves, experience what they're telling you. They make it up just to make it something funny to talk about. But it does seem that there was more of a modern style of that comedic stand-up routine, where, as you say, they do more sort of observational comedy of things that have happened to them.
So I go back to the Bill Cosby school of comedy, Wonderfulness, Why Is There Air, were some of the first comedy albums I ever remember, and basically there were things like Bill Cosby. I noticed. Okay, if I were to do Bill Cosby here for a sec, I would say it is not in what you say; it is merely in how you say it that gets the comedy. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's a style of timing with the way you say the words and the emphasis you give the words and the emotion you give the words. And I learned that very early on, that comedy-wise, it wasn't so much that his stuff was always funny, but it was just the way he did it. That he could take simple things and say a simple word, and people would laugh, or just the way he made his face look in a particular way, which didn't require any, I studied comedy, dude, for a long time because I thought I wanted to be a comedian. I wanted to get into funny business, Now look at me.
Now you're just funny.
Now I'm just this weird dude. This philosopher, this silly semi-comic Yoda. Anyway. But yeah, and I liked, of course I was an early Steve Martin fan and Robin Williams, and they were to me comedy giants.
Yeah, they always make me think classic sort of slapstick, isn't it? It's sort of like
it's brilliantly stupid.
Yeah, modern interpretation of slapstick. Yeah, especially people like Jim Carrey. He's so rubber. He can manipulate his face and body so aptly to create the silly expressions and stuff.
Oh, righty then.
It's definitely. I can't think of the word for it. It's sort of like what you call like a grotesque sense of humour, because they'll pull a silly face and that makes you laugh. You're seeing something that would normally be grotesque to you. That's what gets the humour reaction.
Well, I have noticed a trend, really, though, towards just overall what they call realism in things. You'll see it more in movies. You'll see it more in what they try to call real TV or whatever that is, which is really just fake reality, but isn't it all? But I noticed in comedy there is a trend more towards realism within the comedy. More people are getting up and talking about real world issues. This is where it's good. See, some comedians are smart. They use it as a forum to get out better than a preacher can a message.
Oh, yeah,
and in a way, by the way, that because comedy is accepted by all people overall, a person who speaks using comedy your heart's more open. You're more willing to listen to them. Your mind is not as closed. They didn't get up there and say, I'm an expert on, I'm going to talk to you today about this particular ism, or I'm going to talk to you about this religion. What you're hearing when they get up there is, I'm just going to talk to you about life. Now, what they believe, they probably don't discuss while they're up there. But you're not going to receive it in the same way because you don't walk in with the context of, it being some kind of dogmatic sort of thing. It's open to, I can listen to them. It's freedom of speech thing. They can say what they want. I can make my own decisions. I can lead myself.
It could be a lecture, but it's a lecture presented with humour, which means you actually enjoy listening to it.
It's a lecture with punchlines.
Yeah, it's not boring. I
hope we're not boring. If we're boring, please write to us and say, you are boring. That way we'll know and improve the show in accordance with your wishes and will. Thank you. Okay, I had to throw it in there.
Yeah, I went to see Rob Newman. This was years ago. He's doing a comedy tour. And he did this brilliant stand-up routine that was all about Coca-Cola primarily, but it was about the big corporations and where they, stash all their money and all the nefarious things they get up to. So it was absolutely filled with information, and it was it was about an hour and a half, about 90 minutes long stand-up routine that would...
About Coca-Cola?
Yeah.
You can do 90 minutes on Coca-Cola. If a comedian can do 90 minutes on Coca-Cola, I would be surprised.
It kept you laughing, and it was, like I said, it was just filled with information. So that, to me, was an amazing way to use comedy, as you say, to relate information to people. He wasn't preaching at them. He was just using that form of media to give them all this information, or to at least put it in front of them so then they can think about it for themselves. And that, to me, was such...
And on the propaganda wheel, that means that their minds were open to receive the information.
He did another one called The History of Oil, which you can actually find. It's on my YouTube channel, actually. I'll put a mirror up of it on there.
That should be fascinating.
It's worth a watch because, those who don't learn about history are doomed to repeat it. I know history can be long and boring for some people to be bothered to look into, but it's, when it's presented to you in a comedic format, you might be more willing to sit and...
Absolutely, brother. Amen.
But yeah, it is... I can't remember who it was who said it, but somebody a few years ago said, that stand-up comedians now are like modern-day preachers and prophets. They stand up there and tell the truth, like Bill Hicks did, George Carlin, so many others. They stand there and tell the truth, and they're allowed to get away with it because it's comedy.
Yep.
So in a way...
Well, Lenny Bruce basically wasn't as much.
I was going to say we, but, I've never been a stand-up comedian, so I shouldn't those people...
Certainly you are. Look at you. We're sit-down comedians.
I'm a sit-down comedian, yeah.
We're Zen medians. Come with us.
People have taken something, like we were talking about earlier, that the sanctioning of... areas and social interactions to certain restrictions. So, i.e., they're allowed to stand up there and say all these terribly naughty things because it's a comedy routine for entertainment. The society, the machine, has unfortunately given itself an Achilles heel by saying you're only allowed to, have these kind of conversations or these emotions or talk about this kind of stuff in this area. They're talking about it and they're all laughing. Why are they all laughing?
Excuse me, did you just say damn? You need to go over there to the cursing area. Please go stand over there if you're going to use naughty language.
And, I know some comedians deliberately use the shock factor. Like Bill Hicks did it a lot. He used to really push his audiences deliberately. But again, he was allowed to get away with it because...
You want to know what my favorite Bill Hicks joke was? I got to tell it real quick. It's quick.
Yeah, go on.
Do you think when Jesus returns, he's going to want to see a cross? That's my favorite Bill Hicks joke. When I heard that, I just hit the floor laughing because...
Yeah. Oh, this, again, sort of tangent, but that's why I think a lot of that side of those predominant religions it's a death cult, basically. It's just the easiest way to describe it.
See that man up there? He died for you.
Yeah.
What did I do? You were born. Now stop it. You're evil.
I know, I say I know, as in I have knowledge of, whatever. I feel fairly confident that there's a hell of a lot of religious people out there who could be standing up now saying, that's not what it means.
I know, and guys, guess what? Even though I just expressed myself as to some of my feelings, understand this, I acknowledge and respect your views.
But to the lay person who grows up in our society and goes through daily life with the usual kind of interactions they have with those institutions, the perception they're left with is, like you say, it's a dead guy nailed to a cross.
And you're supposed to feel guilty about that, personally.
Yeah, this is, to me, it's part and parcel of what exemplifies why religious structures, the way they are, the way they've become institutionalized, etc., don't do the kind of function that they used to, that they actually developed to fulfill within society. They no longer do that. Now they're just another hierarchy that sustains itself.
Well, and it endorses the idea of creating fear in order to induce you to want to be a part of that faith. And to me, it's not, my faith isn't built on any fear-based idea. It's built upon the idea that I want to get closer to that which is higher than myself. It has nothing to do with a fear that somehow my ancestors ate an apple if it was sold to them by a snake. It's my understanding is, yes, there are certain inherent things that are negative within the human experience, but look how much greater the magic is of being human. Look how much joy there is in this experience if we just see it. We're not seeing it. We're not opening up to the fullness of the experience of being human because we're busy being bogged down with looking at the matrix that they put right there in front of us every day that says go to work, get up, certain patterns.
Yeah.
And they emphasize these patterns by showing them to you on TV. These are how proper people live. These are how the different socioeconomic classes work. Which one do you want to be in?
Yeah. Pick your label. Pick your label.
Yeah.
Put yourself in the box.
I don't like being in boxes.
Please.
I don't want to be in a box. If you stay in a box, you're dead.
Yeah. Again, so I think we've got somewhat of a loose theme going on here about the humour and cultural sort of stifling, like I talked about, the sanctioning of areas and actions and stuff like that. 'Cause I was going to say, when I'm talking about that kind of institutionalized hierarchy, to me, it sort of presents itself as being this barrier between you and further information or knowledge or perspective, or however you want to view it. It's back to that, basically what is a Gnostic system of saying, I have more knowledge of you than you, and I will control who is allowed to have access to it. And I will only give you my interpretation of what it actually is or says.
Well, what's sad is they started selling truth. And the minute you start selling truth, you form a priesthood because you got to have the truth salesman.
Mm-hmm.
And so, since then you got to go, there's certain people that go to buy their truth, and within buying this truth, there's a tax they find out there called a tithe or what have you, and offerings, and they're supposed to go pay tribute and go do certain things. And then, it's almost like, I understand Christianity because I grew up in it. And so I often refer from that perspective. And I, by the way, acknowledge and respect Christians. But as a Christian, one thing that I kept asking myself is, why is it that we are supposed to constantly, what was I going to say? I lost my exact train of thought there. Isn't that terrible?
Brain fart.
Yes, I did. I had one because I had three thoughts go off at once. I have to be fair with the people to understand, and my brain does that. At 51, I guess I'm allowed. I need to get on meds soon.
A certain amount of flatulence is permissible.
I'll listen to this later. By the way, I always hear my show back later. When I hear it back later, I'll remember exactly what I was going to say, and I go, damn it. I had a great point.
Well, you had me just thinking about the way I was talking about that hierarchy being an obstruction, easily sort of perceived in the sense of the fact that you have to have, as you say, you have to have that priest class, the person who sells you the truth. They stand in a certain place within a certain building, they have to stand behind the altar, in front of the altar, in certain positions, they have to say...
Between you and God.
Yeah. They do this little ceremonial dance, and that, to me, it's like how people do not connect again, it's back, because I was trying to link it into or thinking about the connection to sort of like sanctioned areas where you are allowed to do certain things. How is it that you put this encapsulated desire to connect with, commune with, know of, whatever you want to call it, with something divine or something other than, out there above yourself, again, however you want to perceive that. But why is it, why are you only allowed to do it when you're in this building? Why do you have to do it in this certain way?
Because that's where the hymnals are, and what else are you going to sing?
That's where the organ is.
Exactly. We can't sing together if we don't come into this building. I always looked at the church has no windows or doors, was my way of looking at it. We're in it all the time, so you can't leave the church.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there. Now you can choose to follow the way of the church, which is the natural way, the flow, or you can choose to go your own way, which you'll usually trip up and make mistakes. It's not about choosing a God, it's about choosing the way or the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Your way, or the way that is just the right way. there is a right way. Now, I can't define that for people, but there is a right way. I mean, I can say this: it doesn't include murder and death and war. It doesn't include phones ringing out of nowhere.
I was waiting for that.
It's my mother too. Yes, my mother calls during the show. She did that last time, didn't she? Hold on. Hi, Mom. I am doing a show right now with my friend from... Where are you from, Harry?
UK.
UK, yes. Okay. All right. Love you.
Midlands.
Yes. I was hoping to be more specific. I mean, to you, the United Kingdom. Where is that specific? What street? No. What street are you laying on?
The nearest big city to me is Birmingham.
Ah.
I live out on the outskirts, out of the big city.
Ah. So when the 2012 bomb hits the Olympics, how far will you be? Will you be one of those 13,000 dead?
It will possibly be visible if the weather's clear enough. You know, might see a little mushroom on the horizon, but other than that, no, I should be plenty far enough away.
So you shouldn't be in the burn zone or anything?
No, hopefully not.
Okay, good, okay. That's going, for those people who don't know, that's going around the internet. There's a thing that is talking about, I'm sure everybody who's probably listening to us knows about this by now, don't you?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Pick stuff.
That all started with the whole Zion thing, wasn't it?
Partly.
2012 Zion?
Yeah, I don't think it was just that. It was, you know, it's just, again, it's back to that 2012, isn't it? So many divergent threads all sort of connect into this year in one way or another. So it just so happened to be London was the host for the 2012 Olympics.
I think we'll find out if mass consciousness works this year.
Yeah.
There seems to be this really big mass consciousness that just seems to think, you know, a certain day is going to be, this is it.
Like flicking on a light switch.
Well, you know, and who knows, you know, maybe, but I'm open-minded, you know.
I agree, yes. Ultimately, I'm open-minded, yes. I have to admit to the possibilities. I'm not sort of unaware. That's the
day the earth hatches.
Yeah. But it is, to me, it is one of those things where it's just classically, it's like, look, there's no way you can argue or prove one way or the other, and there's no way you can define the exact moment one way or the other, so therefore, let's just wait and see.
Allen was going to kill us all.
It would be fantastically wonderful if something magical like that occurred. Well, I'm saying that, you know, that's if it fits into my chosen belief. You know,
some people don't want something all of a sudden magic. Of course, now realize if you could grow and become a greater being, like if we were to, maybe we find out we're all in little pupas and we peel open and we're this beautiful butterfly thing, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would like to personally be that butterfly if that's possible. Like some people say that the evolutionary process, this is true, even in people who, you know, I mean, I don't say even in. See, I grew up with that group of people that didn't believe in evolution, so I had to go learn about it from other ways.
Quick, get the pitchfork.
See, I don't see why the two can't join together. You know, one is the cause, and the other's the process.
I personally feel, I sort of came to this realization several years ago, and I personally feel there is a very, very simple miscommunication going on here between the predominantly, you know, the main hardcore backbone of the creationist ideas and what you could call like the evolutionaries, the people who believe more in evolution. Very simple miscommunication is the fact that, okay, if there is a being that created all this stuff that, you know, classically creationists would say these things were created by, how is it that you cannot conceive that this being is so intelligent that it can do all this kind of stuff you're talking about, but it's not intelligent enough to start the process of evolution? Why are you doing that to your creator? You're making your creator dumb. What is to say that if the God is all you claim he is to be, that he couldn't have conceived of the system that we define as evolution and just initiated its process? He didn't necessarily create the dinosaurs and the cats and dogs and all this. No, he just started the process of evolution because he's immortal. He doesn't need to look into the future because he's already in the future. So he knew full well that what he started at the beginning of time would create what we're looking at now. So he didn't have to come along and individually mould every animal and plant and all. No, he just started evolution because he was clever enough to understand the entire process of evolution. So he knew what would come out at the other end.
Well, and the other thing I used to think about when I was a kid, and because I grew up, in a spiritual household, when I first started learning about evolution, I started thinking about the whole process of it and how, to me, it started to make sense to me that they said, God made the earth in 6 days, and on the seventh he rested, and I thought, well, why so quick? Was he in a rush? Was it really? It must have been really hard to make us. How do you grow all those trees in a single day? And don't worry about it. If God wanted us to know, He would have written about it in His Word. I was always told.
How many angels can you fit on the head of a pin?
Exactly. All of these. That's what did me in, because I really wanted to be a preacher when I was younger. In fact, I was a preacher when I was younger, and I'd get around to the preachers and ask them difficult questions that, quite frankly, most of what I got were irrelevant. They were answers that were pat answers for these questions that seemed to be passed down but had no real substance to them. I was reading the Bible. It's like you're in this book and I'm reading it, and why are you telling me something different than what I'm reading here? This doesn't make sense to me. Why are you trying to redefine this or whatever? And I saw that a lot. Religion tends to do that, and that made me sad. Because I really wanted people to see the truth that was in the Bible, because it's there if you read it yourself, and don't let other people try to define it for you. Mm-hmm. There are truths in there. They're built around myths and stories and legends, just like every other spiritual teaching that's out there. But read past the detail and see the big picture. Look past the trees.
Don't necessarily take it as the literal meaning of the words in the sentence or whatever. It's just such a common mistake. And I know that's I know that's not true of everybody looking at trying to interpret what those words are, but that does seem to be a big reason of what causes so many arguments and divisions and wars and whatever else has been fought.
Oh, I can't count the number of people over there on YouTube that all claim to be Christians, that there's all this infighting amongst them because this person, they make videos about each other, This person teaches this particular doctrine, which is of the devil, that Lucifer and death and Hades, and they get all off on the negative, and all they're doing is preaching this negative hate against another person for their own ego's sake. I don't see any wisdom in it.
They're only proving it to themselves, because they're certainly not proving it to their God, because if their God is what they claim him to be, they don't need to prove themselves to him.
Well, no, they're trying to even prove themselves to each other. And yet they don't have all the facts or answers. They're both everybody's studying the same basic materials. The world is filled with great writings. They're all available on the internet, so go read them. Mm-hmm. And as you read them, the problem is some people go, they have what I call false aha moments. They think they've had an epiphany, but what it is it's just their mind clicked with something that gave them a direction. Directions mean that you're on to something, but you're not quite there yet. But some people love that direction feeling so much, they latch onto it as though the epiphany now is the truth, and fail to see that all it was a turn to get you in the right direction. They think they've arrived. Mm-hmm. This happens among younger people more than anything. When I was in my 20s and 30s, there were times when I could have told you, I would have told you I know more than I know now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I thought I knew more about life in my late 20s and early 30s especially, and now that I'm 51, I realize how stupid I was to think at any point during that time that I knew so much, because you see, it took this process. We go through this process of development. Again, I was saying earlier, it wouldn't be nice if we became the butterfly. I think part of the process is this realization of, one, how important you are, and two, how unimportant you are. Mm-hmm. How massive a force you are, and yet how insignificant you are. Well, they sound incongruent, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, they're both true.
I was going to say, yeah, definitely, because, this has been talked about in the sense of being that state of being comfortable with the cognitive dissonance of a paradox. And again, just that in and of itself makes your mind go, because, cognitive dissonance, being in that position where you have two opposing beliefs, basically.
Oh, yes.
You believe in something, even though you can see that there's two direct opposites within it. Your brain is sort of going into a spin, going, cannot.
I would kill everyone for peace.
Yeah. And the kind of stuff we often talk about, and certainly I feel is a big part of what is unfortunately called the truth movement, is that trying to deal with paradoxes. And maybe I should just say it's from my own personal perspective, my own opinion, my usual caveat. I've found that, unfortunately, you cannot deal with it. There is no unpacking it and quantifying it because it's a paradox. And until you can accept that, and until you can just say, okay, yes, all right, carry on. It is a paradox, but I carry on regardless, I accept it's a paradox. It doesn't make fucking sense, but okay. And it's that you build up lots and lots of paradoxes, or I should say you come to realise lots and lots of paradoxes. And it's when, in the same manner, when I was younger, I would have probably said the same as you, that I knew this and it was this and that was that and rah, rah, rah. And now I'm more likely to say, well, I think it might be.
I have more ideas than I have beliefs.
Yes, and I have more questions than I have knowledge. And
every answer seems to bring just more questions, which makes, but see, that's the process of it is what makes it fun to me. It's the educating myself.
Yeah, and that kind of realization for me was what led me to become more comfortable with what it was I was sort of looking at and doing, because for ages you do sort of, and it's why I often use that analogy of the rabbit hole and talking about, getting stuck down in the tunnels because you're chasing this or that rabbit, you're trying to find where is the end, there isn't an end. And that, for me, that dealing with that paradox of I'm currently experiencing existence in a linear environment, for all that I can tell about it, this is a linear existence experience, but everything I'm looking at is telling me that actually, no, it's not linear. It's continuous, singular. It's
cyclical.
Yeah, oneness. Okay, I just have to accept that because so far I can't figure it out or explain it in any way. It's a paradox. I'll just accept it and let's carry on evolving by looking at more and more stuff.
Yeah, and it's because of that same paradox that I often will have interest in things that sometimes are conspiratorial, because I'll give them the benefit of the doubt to prove themselves, like this, 2012 London thing. It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Could. Maybe it gave somebody an idea, if nothing else.
In an infinite universe, there are infinite possibilities. It's a logical assumption. The two go together. You throw infinity at anything, and things.
Well, see, that's why I'm concerned, because I think on some parallel universe, I'm here watching myself, looking down upon me, going, "You dumbass."
You mean he hasn't realised yet?
I don't even know what to realise yet. That's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah, I'm just realising that I'm supposed to realise something.
I don't think most people are comfortable with that, though. They want definites.
Yeah, I said that in a joking fashion, but really, that's the kind of thing that I was just trying to describe. It's the coming to the humble acceptance that you don't know everything. You're probably never ever going to be able to learn everything. with the caveat of within this existence that you can prove, you know, arguably if everything is on, then you're not going to end, and etc. But getting that comfortable feeling with that, okay, yeah, I can't always be right, I can't know everything, but I still want to know more. I'm still looking for more. I'm still on the path, and I realise the path is the process. So let's just keep looking. Let's be open-minded and keep looking. Some things may seem absolutely ridiculous at first glance, but yeah, okay, so nod in their direction, go, okay, yeah, I see you as a possibility. It's acknowledging the infinite possibility that we are part of. You might actually find some comfort then with dealing with what you're doing now. You know, and that to sort of roll it back towards a conversation, you know, that to me is that Zen point where you feel connected to everything else, but you're also ultimately aware of your own uniqueness within that everything else.
Of course, I think the uniqueness is important because it gives us our own identity. But at the same time, you know, the thing I see so many people do is they think of your uniqueness and they put ego into it, or id. You know, that monster that wants it all and wants it now. And see, patience is part of love, and that's part of why we have a problem with love. We get impatient with each other. We get intolerant of each other. We get a lot of that too, though, has to do. I mean, we could probably cover another show, like psychological reasoning for damage. You know, like, you know, some people are damaged in their youth. A lot of children who are abused become abusive. This has changed our society too, both, you know, and I hope we will discuss some of those things that are going on in society as we do future shows, because I know we joke around a lot here too, but I want people to know that we do get serious and talk about issues sometimes that are, you know, important, and our spiritual self is important. You know, there's no joke about that. Who we are inside, the person who is the love, who is the compassion, who is the caring, who is the all things of goodness, what some people might call all things of light. That's one direction. And that's the direction we should be headed, because it's the one that really matters in the end, you know? That's the one I'm headed for, at least. Oz. Isn't that Oz? I think Oz is over the hill somewhere. I know it's going to be run by some little old man behind a curtain, though, and that's just going to piss me off.
We've got to get past the leprechauns first, though.
Leprechauns? Nobody told me about leprechauns. I heard flying monkeys.
It's over the rainbow, isn't it? So, you know, we've got to get...
Somewhere over the rainbow.
To mention that. But,
you know I'm going to do something crazy, right?
I was just going to add, you know, it's still... No matter the protestations of the academics and all that, you know, the institutionalized, sanctified version of reality, despite all their protestations, if you look at it, you know, they still can't, in their own words, absolutely prove what is existence, what is actually, you know, going on, what is going on in your body, what is it you're experiencing that is this existence, all this kind of stuff. It's all still in the realm of the arts. It's all still, that's why philosophy is an art. It's not a science. You know, so we often talk about spiritual things. And again, to me, it's that trying to be open-minded to, even though I cannot, in the ways that these materialist people demand, I can't give them hard, repeatable facts that can be quantified into a computer database.
I would like a pound of truth, please.
But they themselves cannot, under their own restrictions, completely convince any logical mind that they have all those answers that they require in that form. It's still ongoing, and again, this for me is sort of a bit of a pet rant. Is that classic misinterpretation of what is the scientific process, what is the scientific method, And yeah, you have the classic sort of image of science that people have of, you know, a guy in a lab coat in a lab doing an experiment and then writing bits down, writing the data down of what he finds. Yeah, that's part of it. That's like the quantitative, the quantifying part of what people do in scientific experiments to prove things. But the scientific process is to question until you've exhausted everything you can think of in terms of a question, and whatever withstands all those questions, that's most likely the truth.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Note the way I said it, most likely the truth, because they themselves admit that we cannot conceive of questions that might be asked 1,000 years from now. So therefore, somebody asking a certain question 1,000 years from now might actually disprove what we now think is truth, according to their scientific 3D reality. So,
but on 10 dimensions, you'll understand this completely.
Yeah. Well, I've seen them talk about blooming 11 dimensions and all kinds of stuff, you know, when you get into that kind of theoretical physics and maths and whatever.
Well, see, I've often called my version of my, what I would call God, when people say, my God's a bigger God, I say, no, my God's got to be huge because my God is unlimited dimensional. So, my God's pretty cool because he doesn't have no limits whatsoever. He, she, it, they, if you want to, you know, I always say, holy entity is a he.
But who created your God?
What? Well, of course.
He created himself?
Well, through all of us, he continues to create himself.
I'm just asking that, you know, typically devil's advocate atheist question is like, well, if your God's that created all this, who created your God?
Oh, I think that's an amazing idea. I think it was the first intellect, and when the first intellect came into being, the first intellect said, "What the fuck? What is this? What am I? Have I been here forever? Yes, I've been here forever. Okay.
I need it.
Next, what? Just a minute, hold on. It's dark here. Somebody, what? Get light. Oh, look, lights. This is interesting. I think there's some water down there. I don't know what water is, but I'll name that water. It looks fine to me. Alrighty then. And, let's see, what do I do with that? It looks like it needs something. What? What'll I put on it? A rock! That's it. Boom! I don't know what a rock is yet, but that looks good. I'll call that a rock. All right. Now, look, it could be a little more populated with something. I don't know what. Let's see. We'll put plants on it. Yeah, there we go. Now, I realize this is thousands and thousands of years. I mean, God is actually doing this in, let's do the Okay, but anyway. So, eventually he gets this all put together, and he goes, that rocks. Except I need one more thing, and that's when he created marijuana, and then he smoked a bowl and made the platypus.
Yeah.
The end, children. Wasn't that a great gospel tale? I was great in Sunday school.
I would keep the kids entertained for hours. I think, yeah, that kind of schooling would be much more enjoyable.
I'm sure when the parents heard the stories their kids would tell them, though, they would go, "What?
What was he smoking?"
Well, my mom had this tendency. We had storybooks when I was a kid, right? You know, storybooks, right? And of course, my mom wanted to teach me up in the ways of, you know, the Bible, and so she bought me this storybook that was about the story of David. And later on, I found this book and found out she'd scratched out the whole part about where David cut Goliath's head off. But I always wondered about that picture of him holding this head, and my mom said it was just part of a statue that had fallen down.
Yeah.
So my parents rewrote the Bible, I come to find out later. That really bothered me. Then I started wondering if my parents' parents and my grandparents and my parents' parents rewrote parts of the Bible sometimes. You know, you got to wonder about those things.
Mm. Well, you know, arguably, who wrote the Bible, you know, who put it together in its current format, all that kind of good stuff.
I'm more concerned with what it means than what it says.
Yes. What
it means is so much deeper. It's got the philosophical concepts there's power in what some people call myth. Myth doesn't have to be wrong, and it doesn't have to be that we call the Bible. I mean, myth just generally speaks of common ideas, which tell stories that help people along through the journey of life. And if we take it as that and worry less about whether Adam had a belly button or not, we'd do a lot better.
It is a good question, though, isn't it? Yeah.
It's sort of like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And I say, does it really matter?
Well, scientifically, according to all the evidence, the egg came first because there were reptiles that laid eggs long before there was chickens.
Oh, sure.
So, you know.
Yeah, you and your I bet, right.
Just to throw a damp sponge on that person.
I heard we were made out of, we are the same, we're about, 3 chromosomes away from a gingerbread man.
Yeah.
And so you can't catch me, buddy, because I'm the gingerbread man.
We're 90-something% the same as a potato.
Actually, I heard we're pretty close to corn, too. You see, they're trying to make us equal as vegetables. It's a commie plot, dude. I know it.
Well, I
Incoming, paranoid.
I do actually think that some of those stories that have come out like that recently are a bit of just propaganda to prop up the idea in the public's attention about genetically modified foods and how, you know, it can't be bad for us because, you know, we're so similar to a vegetable anyway. You know, surely it can't be bad for us putting this stuff in our body.
I heard, dude, I heard that there's some ganj in Florida that's so good that when you get the munchies, you want to eat someone's face off.
That's another, actually, strange enough, I've been talking about recently.
The zombie apocalypse!
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. I've been talking about it, which just perpetuates the bloody meme, but it does seem to...
Do you have a Willy Wonka thing about the zombie apocalypse yet? You know that Willy Wonka one that's going all around?
It does seem to be a deliberately planted meme. For some reason, they want the public to be chattering about zombie apocalypse.
Well, it sells the program well. I mean, aren't they coming out with more Dead Zone real soon? So, you know, there you go. There's marketing in action.
Yeah. I've said that myself. I said viral marketing. You know, this is just propagating a meme deliberately.
It comes out later they paid the guy to go eat someone's face. He got a Dead Zone tattoo on his back. They never showed that, you know.
But I think the toxicology report come back and they said there was nothing in his system apart from trace THC. And
I'm so glad I can go back to doing bath salts.
Yeah. I mean, I'm rolling a smoke at the moment, so I'll be putting THC into my body, but I'm really not partial to faces. You know, I'll leave that to the really crazy people.
I never wanted anything worse than Doritos, dude. I never wanted to eat. I didn't even want to eat an animal's face off. I never had that. See, they're going to start blaming this back. You know how this works? Is now that's just an excuse to blame it back on pot. Mm-hmm. You know, which works because it'll be remembered by people.
But that's why I deliberately mentioned it, because they were so adamant that all this was to do with this bath salts. And yet, when the actual report comes back, there's nothing in his system other than that. And it's sort of why are they deliberately propagating this one storyline?
And then they go with the pot thing. So I don't know, dude. It's hard to say. You ever look at the news sometimes and wonder if any of it's true? They're just pumping some signal in your house. It's sort of like that thing where you're just, the dude is what was that the Jim Carrey thing with what was that movie where he was being watched?
The Truman Show.
Yeah, the Truman Show.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I feel like that, don't you?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just all not real. It's just being pumped into your house. It's a whole big conspiracy.
This is why I'll say to people, go and look out your window, or better yet, actually go outside your house. Because even though the internet is a fantastic tool because it gives us amazing, ways to connect with each other and communicate and share information, all this brilliant, fantastic stuff. But at the same time,
where else can I see someone eat someone's face off?
Yeah. What is actually occurring outside your window, outside your front door? What about the community around you that you actually live within?
Who are those people? I just looked.
Yeah. So sometimes what you see on the television, especially, you have a big argument about television and propaganda and whatever, but even on the internet, you're looking at all this kind of stuff going on all across the world and what is actually occurring outside your front door. Because when it comes down to it, what's going to be affecting you directly in your life is what occurs in your own local community.
So think globally, act locally.
Yeah, it's a good way of saying it, definitely.
Think globally, act locally. Yeah, I think I read that on a bag somewhere, T-shirt or something. I also read, don't worry, be happy. And I'm with stupid. That was good. And I've been thinking about getting into T-shirt writing. I've heard it's a lucrative career.
Yeah, I'm talking about, like using comedy as a vehicle. People are sort of catching on to those kind of ideas of how you can sort of spread information, spread a message through use of things that people are culturally connected to. The printed T-shirt in our cultures, it has become as totemic as the black leather jacket was 50 years ago.
Uh-huh.
People proudly display whatever it is they've got printed on their T-shirt. People will buy T-shirts just because it's got a particular picture or particular message that they want to share.
Or they're a rock star and they get paid to wear a brand.
Yeah, it's like a walking billboard. So it's an opportunity for you to say something you want to say to anybody who looks in your direction and can read or understand what it says on your T-shirt. Even if they can't understand it, it could say something. It is. These are people's kind of creative entrepreneurialism. There's an ism word for you. That people are getting into. It's why I love the idea of what the guys at Finn were doing, that the whole Finn setup, and that was what, a big part of what we were doing, similar at FTP and other sites have done. To me, it did seem to become more and more about connecting and operating as groups, not necessarily that you give up any of your individuality or what you're doing individually. No, you are just creating associations and networks, and through joining together, you are creating a shared front line, even though it isn't, there is no singular front line, there is no battle line, nothing like that. But you are.
I always think it's funny that some people don't feel they're doing enough, and at some points it's those people that don't feel they're doing enough who are doing more in some cases than they realize. And part of that is just being there and being involved. I mean, a chat room, if you can be there, if you've got time and you can go be at a chat room, be at one. Why not? Support people, because people come into chat rooms often who need something. They want something. They have, and you can help them, and that's part of the thing. We're serving each other. So if you're not there to serve, if you're only there to be served, you're not going to get much out of anything. Because most people aren't there to serve you. Okay? Yeah. But if you're there to serve, oftentimes you get great joy out of it.
Well, if all you ever do is take, eventually the well runs dry and people, stop giving. Because there ain't anything left to give. So, it's always a symbiotic relationship.
Mm-hmm. So, it's be the change, be the active activist.
Yeah.
That's.
Don't beat yourself up thinking you're not doing enough. Because, we could, if we really get pedantic over stuff like that, none of us ever do enough ever and will ever be able to. That's a stifling effect. It's one of those things that stagnates people. You get
people ask what they should do, and I say, well, figure out your talent. What is your talent? Because I mean, you could even dance for peace. There's all sorts of ways to make happen what we want to have happen by just doing the creative thing that you're blessed with to do, whatever that be. If you're a painter, paint truth. If you're an artist, in any way, fine arts or whatever, make a play or come up with some kind of creative street theater. Anything to make.
I was going to say, if you think you're not creative, then don't allow yourself to be put off by thinking like, oh, I can't do that kind of thing. Think of something you can do, even if it is just something simple like helping out, working volunteer at a soup kitchen, helping by volunteering your time to online communities. You can act as a moderator within forums and chat rooms. You can just simply be a network node, passing shared documents from one group of people to another group of people.
Or you can make videos. You can do a music video, or you could create a blog, that helps out in some way. And believe me, if you do something impressive, Finn's going to get behind it. I'm sure when I speak for Finn, I could also talk the same way for Flipping the Pyramid. It's people. We need to start getting together. Cookie's right. We need to start bringing our creative efforts together more and being active in sometimes it's just finding partnerships with other people. I mean, look at Cookie and I. We both are able to get together. We get along real well, so we do a show together. I mean, I realize, what is this, our last show was in April, dude. You realize that? Yeah. But I was going to ask you went on a whole trip, literally, from what I hear, but I guess we don't have time for that today. That was going to be my big topic of conversation, is what happened with all that, huh? Anyway.
We're up to, 1 hour 25, it's up to you. I could give you a quick fill-in if you want.
Well, why don't you give me the 5-minute version, then we'll get out of here, because whatever it takes. I mean, within reason. I've got to go shopping and clean the house before my girlfriend gets home, because I have a mundane life among things to do. Did 5 hours today on Finn Radio. You can see me there daily on Finn Radio, and I'm there. 7 a.m. until noon with Wake the F Up, and then. Might as well give the plug, right? And then we also, in this show, is Ecstatic Zen, and we're on whenever we feel like it, on both.
It is a bit infrequent, but...
It's when we announce it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's the quality, not the quantity, right? Hopefully these people get something out of it. They seem to enjoy it, hopefully. If you don't, remember, again, if you were bored by this show, please let us know by writing.
Please turn off now and don't ever listen again.
And if you're going to troll us, why are you here? Please leave us alone. Thank you. And if you got to this part and you're a troll, man, you're a persistent troll.
You should get a medal or something for that. Yeah.
You really got some problem. You got some time on your hands.
Maybe we should find something more enjoyable to do.
Oh, I love them though. I even love the trolls, man. I mean, sometimes they inspire me.
Sometimes.
Have you ever gotten so pissed off at a troll it actually inspired you and you did something great because of that? You had that, the troll bothered me, so I'm going to do something fantastic now to show that troll that I...
Yeah, there was one guy who left a few comments. Oh, this was last year sometime, I can't remember when. And it just made me think, what you're saying to me, mate, basically just makes me feel like I want to find out more, I want to do more. He was attacking me in the kind of, why are you bothering doing this? You'll never win. They've already won. All the power's with them. All this kind of usual defeatist thing. And I was just thinking, it's just not registering with me, mate. What you say, I can hear what you're saying. I can comprehend what you're saying, but the actual message or meaning that you're trying to get across to me is just meaningless. Okay. You just made me want to do something more. Okay, what should I do now? Oh, no, I'll read this or I'll watch this documentary or whatever. So if anything, he just made me feel more inspired that, I need more. I need more. Not in a guilty fashion of I must do, it wasn't anything like that. No, it was just, like I say, inspired. He made me feel more inspired to actually do more.
Well, and that's, sometimes that, whatever works, dude. Sometimes for me, as long as it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
I just, I'm better though led with a carrot than a stick. I like things where people challenge me by inspiring me to see them do something. So if somebody does something great and I see it, I go, wow, that inspires me to want to try to reach to that, because I never try to beat I'm not a person who wants to beat people. I just want to, if I want to beat anybody, it's going to be me. 'Cause I want to try to beat myself.
Encouragement rather than enforced.
Imagine what we could do if we all got together and just encouraged each other and provided, like if everybody used all of their, personal contacts. Let's say we all go to a chat room where we go, okay, you know what, today it's giving day. What can each other give to each other? What can we do here to give? What does everybody need, first of all? And you go through a list of people's needs.
Yeah.
And as you open that up, imagine, I think that we could never do this correctly, but I think that it would be beautiful if we did. If everyone could fulfill the needs of the other, if people could just say, look, oh, wait, you need tires for your car? Hey, I got an extra set in my garage. I'll email them to you or whatever. Yeah, no, whatever.
It could be one of those great benefits that this tool, the internet, could gift to us if we, were allowed to utilize it in such a way.
They keep us fighting for our right to even use it.
Yeah.
We're so busy, especially activists. They've made us busy on copyright infringement law. They've gotten us bound up with all this stuff about, I don't worry about it lately. I know sooner or later somebody's going to come down on me for something, because they always do.
Yeah.
But I'm not worried about it till it happens, because I don't know what they'll come down on me for. And you know what? I'll change it if necessary.
Yeah.
But I'll look at it, because knowing the law, first of all, I'm a free person. I feel I should be able to freely convey what I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
I feel I should freely be able, as long as I'm not making a profit off of certain things, I should be able to use those things through fair use to either entertain, because see, it's important to entertain as well as educate. Without the entertainment, you don't get the people to educate, I'm afraid, in today's world. Most people don't just want to see a lecture, they want to see you show them, cool graphics and neat little things that make people want to watch it.
They want flashy knobs and twiddly.
Yeah, and because I don't have, Shepperton Studios and whatever, I don't have my own personal studio anywhere, I don't have that ability to go out and, film the apocalypse happening, so I have to sometimes use, footage from 2012 or whatever when I'm making a video, but I use it in small quantity. And it's just, and it's an honor to them. And usually I post what film it is, so somebody might go, "Hey, I should go rent that." So, Redbox makes $1.
Sometimes as well, it's also much more relevant, if what you're trying to say is actually including the film footage or the film itself or the documentary itself, is part of your argument or information that you're trying to get across to people.
Well, like people who analyze the Matrix and break it apart.
I agree with you. I don't see why they have a problem with that, but I know what they say about why they have a problem with it all, but,
What you find out, though, is usually the artists aren't all that concerned about it.
I think
it's the lawyers and the big business people who are really worried about all of the pennies.
Yeah. There is a big swing, I think, going on at the moment in that respect. There are so many more artists in particular, whatever their particular medium is that they work within, but they are becoming much more realizing that they can reach more people, and in the long run, if what they're actually worried about is earning a living from what they do, they can earn a living just as easily by not utilizing that old style system, that old copyright system. So you get a lot more bands who give their music away for free online, and then they earn their living from their live stage performances or from their merchandise that they sell. And the disconnect that's going on between the economic institutions that milk those artists, as a business.
It's horrible, dude.
Yeah.
You want to know who takes more advantage of those musical artists? Their own managers and their own people. take more advantage of the musical artist than the small token they would want for something to play a song for a couple dozen listeners. Yeah.
So I think there is, it's been happening for a few years now, but it's becoming more and more popular.
Oh, well, I watched YouTube start to clamp down on everything on the copyright deal over time. I think most of us who were on YouTube for any length of time know what YouTube has done over time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I got some videos now that were, when I released them, they were fine.
Yeah.
But suddenly now I got one video, I mean, when it first went out, they made me change the soundtrack on it, and it was fine. Then the next day they kept putting restrictions on it. Then the next day it was in some countries this can't be watched. And now my one video says cannot be watched anywhere. Yeah.
I've had similar with mine. That was a big part of why I just gave up on YouTube. I still watch things on YouTube. I still follow people's channels, their uploads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I've given up.
I'm almost afraid to download anything. Like anything else I download is they're going to judge far more harshly than anything I've previously uploaded for some reason.
Considering I wasn't a prolific YouTube user or uploader, I basically thought, no, I'm going to leave this to the people that have a better idea of what they're doing, producing videos and stuff like that. Because there's a lot of people out there still sort of putting up the fight, as it were, by putting up with all this crap that YouTube is throwing at them. But for me, it was sort of like, okay, fair enough. Thank you to those people that are doing that. But
I think they need to troll too, where they send trolls.
Yeah.
Just just go troll each other over here. We let them have a few of our videos every once in a while, so they can go troll them.
But I thought, again, talking about that, identifying something you can be creative at and hopefully utilise that to help others, etc. For me, it was sort of like, well, I don't feel that comfortable doing video stuff, so I'll stick with just the audio stuff. So for me, it was sort of like, okay, don't worry about YouTube, just concentrate on doing the internet radio type stuff and things like we're doing now. So,
I just like being able to say whatever I feel is on my mind. It allows me to be real. It allows me to share. It's much cheaper than therapy. And it helps to, the few people who it actually helps, it helps them. So good. And those that get mad, at least it makes them mad and they go their own way and do their own thing. I mean, whatever it does, however it affects those people, it's just all different. Yeah, I never came here to be popular. I just came here to do what I'm supposed to do.
I haven't sent you my bill yet, mate.
What bill?
the bill for all this therapy.
Okay. Then where's been my meds, dude? You didn't send me my meds.
What, you didn't get them? Oh,
no.
The delivery boy must have snatched them.
He must have smoked them all. I need it for my OCD.
Okay, so we're going up to 136, so I guess we better round it up there.
Okay, well, say goodbye to everybody. Goodbye, everybody. We love you. Oh, God, come back again.
Thanks for listening, folks. Please check out the Finn website at freedominfo.org. Is that right? No, freedominfonetwork.org. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, and FTP at flippingthepyramid.co.uk. Thanks very much for listening if you got this far.
You're still here if you got this far. You're a good man.
We will ramble at you again soon. Take care.
This message was brought to you by Flipping the Pyramid. www.flippingthepyramid.co.uk